Perfection doesn't make people lean in, but do you know what does? Vulnerability. On today's show, we're exploring the art of vulnerability in presentations and how knowing when to open up and when not to can be the difference between an audience leaning back or leaning in. And we've got a speaker and leadership coach who does just that, helping people to connect with something real. You ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Tamika Fair, is a mindful communication speaker teaching authentic vulnerability and audience connection. She focuses on mental health, resilience, and rebuilding, and is known for honest storytelling that helps audiences feel seen and understood. Welcome to the show, Tamika.
It's so great to be here. Thank you so much. It's just so lovely seeing you. Every time we speak, you just put a smile on my face.
Well, good. Let me see. I've got a big job ahead of me. Well, it's a pleasure, and I want to dive right in because I think we've got sort of like almost two fighters. In one corner, we've got speakers obsessing, and I mean obsessing on polishing and doing the very best they can. And in the other corner, we've got audiences that will tend to push back from maybe a little too much polish. Why do you think audiences tend to disconnect from polished, perfect presentations?
Well, honestly, I've been in the audience and I can tell you, just me not being speaking from a standpoint of speaking, but actually speaking from an audience perspective, it's boring. It's dull. And I feel like I'm more connected with someone who's real with me. I don't have time for fake. I mean, we all want to look put together. We all want to look polished. But there's a time when we will be missing out on what the audience truly needs when we leave out the truth and being vulnerable with the audience.
Right. Yeah. I think from my angle as the speaker, who's made this mistake, by the way, I think it's the instinct of most speakers. I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it perfect. I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it perfect. To realize that you are detaching from the audience. And in fact, audiences don't connect with that as much. I've dealt with technical audiences that get almost frustrated and look to see if they can get something by the speaker because nobody's perfect. So I think vulnerability is an important part of what we do.
I think being vulnerable as a speaker helps you to grow. It
Hmm.
helps you to grow as a person as well as a speaker. And I believe that when we're vulnerable with our audience, that creates a connection that is genuine.
Yeah.
And that's what helps you stand out.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's almost a sense of arrogance when we have a speaker that knows all the answers to every question and revels in it. I'm going to tell you a real quick story. I mean, you're my guest, but Rob's going to. We're both guests right now, just for a second. I came out of Xerox and I went into professional speaking, and I felt like I was nailing it, and my evaluations were good, and away we went. And then about 2 years into it, they started to decay just a little bit, and I could see it. I could feel a lack of connection. I couldn't figure it out. I knew the answer to every question. Why wouldn't they love me? And I flew another Xerox instructor out. And to your point, it's the reason why I booked you. To your point, I've lived the mistake. This person said, look, they're not connecting with you. You're coming off almost arrogant. You know everything about selling now. That's not, they couldn't connect to that. So I had to learn to be, I guess, a little bit more vulnerable, but willing to actually say, maybe let me look that one up for you. Let's use the audience for this one. In other words, stop answering every question, Rob. You're losing the audience. I've lived it.
I would never forget my first time speaking, Rob. I'm telling you, I was on stage thinking I just knew what I was doing, Rob. I was trying to tell the audience everything that I felt that they wanted to hear, what I felt that would impress them. And I started making eye contact with the people in the audience, and it was like crickets. I was like, oh my goodness. And then I remember, getting into it and speaking, and I started noticing as I continued to speak, when I would share personal stories with my audience, it will resonate with them. I would notice that they wouldn't, pull back, but it was the time that they will actually lean in
Right.
to what it was that I had to say. And that was eye opening for me. And it was the moments that I felt like could be embarrassing. It's actually not. It actually brings courage. Us being vulnerable is courage. And I feel like that helped me connect with my audience. I'm telling you, when I first started working for a Fortune 500 company, they actually had me speak. It was one of the employees. They were like, "Whoa, Tamika!" They heard me speak, and they was like, "We want you to speak every day for the rest of this training for the next 45 days." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Me? Okay." I was super excited, and I would come, and I will have my speech ready and what I was going to speak about, and I will never forget.
Y-
It was when I went in and shared personal things about my story and how I got to where I was. Because, see, I've been through some things, and I love speaking on mental health because, that's what I'm currently writing about now, mental health. And I like to dig into people's minds and their thoughts and their heart. I love to deeply connect with my audience. I want to penetrate those feelings. So, back to when I began to speak for that training, and I would notice that I would share just inward bits of personal information, but it will be to inspire. It wouldn't be, me just throwing out personal information. It will always be to teach the audience a lesson. And I think that's where speakers have to know that there's a borderline between, just sharing information and, sticking within boundaries, making sure that what you are sharing is moving the people forward and they're being taught and they're learning something from it.
Yeah, well, you're reading my mind because that was my next question. I'm trying to figure out the difference between purposeful vulnerability. Oops, I just made that term up, but purposeful and oversharing, which I have seen on stage before. And you know it when you see it. Uh,
You know it.
and
Yeah.
so, any thoughts on that of where that line is? Because I think that's what might make speakers a little bit anxious about becoming a little more vulnerable to their audience.
Yes. Honestly, you want to share things that will be specific to your specific subject, and you want to share in a way that will help your audience grow. What could they learn from me? Because, see, what I've learned about being vulnerable is that it not only helps me as a speaker and open up more opportunities for myself, but it's also those that one or those two people in the audience that will receive that breakthrough. That's exactly what they needed to hear, exactly what you wanted to hold on to. That person needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when you know that you've made the ultimate difference.
Right.
I mean, I looked out into the audience and literally seen people bawling and crying and sharing their personal stories just because they felt open because I went first. And as a speaker, I think we are leaders, and I think that we are supposed to be the one to go first so we can teach others and be better. But to answer your question, you don't want to bleed out on your audience. You want to make sure that you are healed from whatever it is that you're faced and you're going through. And, you want to let them know about the recovery. more than the injury. And I think that's what's most important. But when it comes to any topic, because for myself, I speak to certain topics. So, of course, mental health and resilience and, just leadership. So I speak to different things, which that will always resonate with my audience. But like how you are in sales, I've been in sales myself. There's speakers speaking on different topics. I think you should open up just enough where your audience or someone there just have that aha moment. And that's how you know.
Right. So you're the subject matter expert. I'm going to throw my theory on this, or I'm going to throw a warning out here. And I want, if you've been listening to my show, you know nothing makes me happier than when I'm corrected because I'm learning too. But here's my line in the sand. I'll share anything. Ish. Okay, say anything, but I'll share most things. Okay. But I never want my audience to feel sorry for me. I don't want them to feel badly for me. So, and maybe that's the part of that you were talking about of maybe the struggles, but what you've been able to, how you've worked your way through it, as opposed to I'm still there. Uh, but that's always. Do I have that right? That I can be vulnerable, and but I don't want them to feel sorry for me. That's a Rob thing. Tell me about that. Do I have it?
I want to say this, Rob, because you have the same question that a lot of people have when they're being vulnerable.
Mhm.
They feel like they're in the wrong. But what I want to say is actually quite the opposite when you're being vulnerable. Because, see, you're teaching me and I'm learning from you. There is no wrong. Whatever we've been through, we're literally growing from it, learning from it. And the audience, they would see it as the exact opposite, not as feeling sorry for you. They'll look at it as, wow, I can be just like him because I've been through that or I had to go through that. So actually, it's where the audience find common ground.
Good. All right, gold star to you. I will tell you, I always love when I can check what I'm doing a little bit. I'm going to open up a little more. I think I'm giving it a different line. My line is when I say feeling sorry, I mean I've seen speakers that can't find their notes or the LCD, the projector, their PowerPoint is breaking down on them. Their microphone is quitting, and they're looking dejected by it. And that's the one that where I'm for me that the feeling sorry. It's like, no, no, no. I'm glad the microphone's broken. That lets me come into the audience and really connect with you. In other words, I don't want them to be distracted by that element. Now, when it comes to mental health and I'm speaking about it, I think if I don't share, I don't know how credible I can be. I read it somewhere. It must be very difficult. I don't think that's connecting me to the audience. So I think I'm stuck in more of the errors that we make as speakers and not getting the audience to feel sorry about that because it distracts them. I'm not fighting you, but I want to show you the area that I'm creating. Do I have that wrong?
Let's see. I would say, no, you don't have it wrong. I mean, it's normal to make mistakes. And as
Yeah,
people, we make mistakes. And what I love doing is showing my audience I'm human.
right,
I am human just like you. I get it wrong just like you. And we're all trying to figure it out in life.
right,
And, I don't feel like the audience discredit us because they see us, you know, mumbo jumbo or, things fall over here or over there because at the end of the day, they're here to learn from you.
right.
They want to see what it is that you have to say. And if something as simple as that discredits us, then there wouldn't be any speakers. And I think that the most powerful speakers we can connect with are those ones who will be open and show us, hey, I'm just as human as you.
Yeah. I agree with you. I was working out today. I took a class. There was an instructor there that kept referring to how behind she was. It's like, I'm running out of time. I didn't know this would take as long. She looked concerned. That's the area where I'm saying that's oversharing to me. We don't know that you're falling behind. How would we know? We're just working out and having a good old time. But now we're not having as good old time because we feel sad for you that time has gotten away from you or something. That's the line that I'm drawing, and I'm willing to push forward. But I'm just letting you know it's much different than a mental health issue for me on this one. It's more of the oversharing. I think I'd rather share things about my family and my struggles than the fact that I can't find my notes. You see what I mean? You don't need to know that. I'll make something up. We'll just keep rolling. I want my audience to enjoy this experience, and I don't want to take that from them. So that's where I'm coming from. But let me push off. You mentioned, sometimes the audience is are crying, they're bawling, as you said. Uh, what are some other signals? Because here we are, some signals that an audience is maybe leaning in as opposed to leaning back. And I don't want to, let's not just say physical to leaning, actually. Can you see it? Can you tell when you become vulnerable and it's really connecting you versus maybe disconnecting you?
That is a really great question. And I think you'll always know it. Just watching facial expressions, you'll always know when you just plunged in too far.
Right,
But I think you also become prepared. You're prepared for these things. So you know where to go, where not to go. You keep it in the lines of making sure that it aligns with what it is that you're teaching your audience. You want to make sure that after you've said it, they feel inspired.
right.
We're not feeling sorry for you. That's not what we want. We want the exact opposite. And if they are feeling sorry for you, then that means, yeah, we definitely went too far.
Yeah. Do you think vulnerability can be taught? I mean, is it a skill that can be learned or does it come naturally?
Vulnerability, this is something that definitely has to be learned. It took me time to become vulnerable in my personal life, in my business, in my career. It's not easy. And I want to let anyone who's watching know that it's okay to learn how to be vulnerable. We don't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm open to sharing how I feel. I'm open to the things that I've been through, that I'm facing. We learn vulnerability. That's something that you can work on with your children, with your spouse, each and every day, just sharing small things. And I'm pretty sure we've all had it in our own life where uh, a parent has come up to us and told us something we never knew about them.
Right.
And we were like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
And it touched us. And it made us feel like, wow. And now you have a deeper connection with that person. And so, to answer your question, yes, I feel like it's something that can be learned. You work on it, you grow, and it makes you a better person. It makes you a better you. Mhm.
Yeah. I would add, I think if you just tell the truth. In other words, you know what I mean? When you're being vulnerable,
Yeah.
tell the truth. Here I am. I might appear to be somewhat callous on this side. Vulnerability. I don't want to be too vulnerable. I'm more vulnerable than you might imagine. I'm a little embarrassed to admit it, but at least twice in my career, I've gotten pretty teary on stage. My eyes started tearing up. I was just really in the moment. I remember, I don't want to go into I'll get teary talking about it, but I remember, that level of vulnerability. And to your point, Tamika, that audience, I mean, I had so many people come up. I was embarrassed by it, quite frankly, but it just sort of like blushing. If you're a person that blushes, you can tell yourself all you want, don't blush. It's coming. Okay. I was really working up there going, no, no, you don't. No, 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 not right here. Not, bang. But I will tell you that It connected me to at a level that I was unfamiliar with, and it was to me it was wonderful. I just didn't want to go quite that far, but again, I couldn't stop it. I was so in the moment. But the audience liked it. I was embarrassed.
I love that, Rob, and I'm happy you shared that story with me. That's beautiful because, see, we also get something out of what it is that we do. I watch you and what you do for people. Just speaking, we have to have a big heart for others. I feel like not just can't anyone be a part of this. Not you just can't be a speaker. You have to have a big heart for others. And you sharing that with me lets me know that the audience think it's always for them. Sometimes it's for us.
Yeah,
We get something out of what we do when we're in front of you. They don't know, we get, you know, what's the word I can use for this? Because there's so many. Oh my, just being there with the audience, I feel renewed. And you reminded me of a speech I gave called "Quitters Never Win," and I would never forget how deep I went into things that I was facing and things that I've been through, and it was so hard for me to write out this speech. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm sharing too much personal information. But I went up there anyway. And I had that same moment. I'm like, don't you do it. Don't you And I'm doing everything to fight it back. And I'm going to tell you, at the end of that speech, it was just a round of applause, standing ovation. I'm like, wow. I
Well,
see what it did to the audience, how it brought life to them, how it affected them, but how refreshing it was also for myself.
yeah. Well, it's a level of authenticity. You can. I was asked one time. Somebody said, "Isn't the word authenticity used too often?" And I actually said, "That's impossible. It's authenticity is. We can do it wrong, but don't tell me I'm saying it too much. I don't think you can because at the end of the day, and that's what that vulnerability is. We're showing them an authentic self. This is who I am, very raw right now." And I, like anything else, an audience will know it and believe it when they see it. Uh, I, what would be some mistakes that speakers make when they try to be more authentic or vulnerable that maybe we should watch out for?
That is a really great question. And I'll say this, starting off with being vulnerable, we want to draw a line. We want to ask ourselves questions. We want to ask ourselves first, is this helping me or is this helping the audience? Is what I'm about to share benefiting myself and going to make me look good after I say it? Or once I speak this, is it going to help someone? That's the first question we should ask ourselves. And when it comes to being authentic, I mean, you can never really go wrong. I mean, know where you are, you'll know the time and the place, but at the end of the day, we want to be authentic because, see, I want to bring all of me to the table. I want to bring, my hobbies to the table, things I like to do. I feel like we should know all of that about you, not just, hi, I'm Tamika Fair, the speaker. I'm so much more than a speaker. I have hobbies, I have things that I love to do. And I feel like, I believe it was Carla Harris who said, and expect to win, we need to bring all of ourselves to the table because, see, it opens doors and you might miss the right client just showing up as Tamika Fair, the speaker. You know, we need to bring, if you like to sing, if you like to dance, if you like to play piano, if you like to model, bring all of that to the table. We need to see all of that on stage. If you like to be a comedian and make jokes, bring all of you, all of you. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And the only way you could go wrong with authenticity, as you asked, is not bringing all of you to the table, holding something back, having a fear to truly be your full self. That's what makes Rob.
Yeah. It's fast. It's really a magical topic that we're on. Again, I throw my amateur thoughts at you, and then you, the pro, throw them back at me. One thing that whenever I write a question, I always think how I would answer it. And when I wrote that question for you, I thought in my novice approach to this, because I've never really put vulnerability under a microscope the way we're doing it. I always thought that the one thing I don't want to do is rush it. In other words, I got a little time on that stage. I don't have to be vulnerable in the first 15 seconds of this conversation. You know, years ago, it's a different example, but I think you'll understand. I think I can connect them. Years ago, when I was with Xerox, I still do it to this day, but I used to give out these these giveaways of an action series poster of me. And it would say, like, I like you because you're a winner. Okay. Now, I had a boss that brought me in and said, that's the end of that. You're not giving those out. And I tried to explain these are 5 day programs, sometimes 10-day programs I'm working on. Don't think I'm handing out a poster as people are walking in the door. Once they got a sense of me, once they believed me, once they got my sense of humor, etc., then it was funny. Then it worked. But it was the timing of it that was so important. So I think the timing of this, my novice self says, I'd watch the timing of not rushing it because I want it to be believable and I don't want to go too fast. What are your thoughts there?
I think that's actually great. It just honestly depends. I'll agree 50-50 with you. I'll say this. When you're
I got to tell you, I love having you on the show, Tamika, because you speak the truth. A lot of people go, if Rob said it, I don't want to upset him. You're like, some of it, not all of it. Go ahead, give me. I love this. Tell me what you're thinking.
even for myself, I've heard speakers speak, and it was actually like one of the first things they did in their intro. They were vulnerable, and we knew like their backstory and just things they shared, and it really had, the audience engaged. Like, wow, okay, well, I'm ready for more. And
Right.
then there's those moments, that we do want to have the right timing. We want to make sure the audience is fully engaged
Hmm. Hmm.
before we take our time and then just go in with it. I think it was a great thing what you did, sharing those posters first thing, because that shows something about your character. That shows something about your personality. And I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. Hey, to your point, I remember specifically a module that I taught at Xerox where, and I still, I always, I'm modeling certain approaches when I'm teaching a trainer. So I have to do the openings in a similar way because in the end I'm showing you the pattern I'm following. But I actually did show some vulnerability because I would tell a story about a trainer that I knew who had been just devastated by horrible feedback from a government official who was on a government contract and how this speaker, it was so damaging that it almost ended their career. And I really laid into this story. And then I looked at him and I said, by the way, that speaker is me. And that's how I opened the module to get their attention of how important this was. So you're right. I think you have to feel it out. It has to be the right time. But there's an example where I really led with it. I mean, about 3 minutes in, and it worked beautifully because there was a hush over the audience of him. Yeah, almost cost me my career. And again, what am I setting up? How important proper feedback is. But I got their attention by being vulnerable.
I'll say this. You want to always make sure that you are uplifting your audience. We got to remind ourselves that when we're being vulnerable, we have to ask ourselves those questions. We want to make sure that it is lifting others up, inspiring others. We want to make sure that it was needed. And you have to ask yourself those questions before you go deep into being vulnerable. You can't just say anything. I feel like words are very powerful. And I feel like what we share with our audience, we should make sure that we do it with intention. And we want to always, 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 and I'll wait for this part, because what I have to say, that I'll wait for that, but I'll say, exactly what it is. We want to have boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and it's interesting because Tamika and Rob can't tell you where those boundaries are. You know what? One thing, and I'm going to pay you a compliment that is never lost on me. If I had a clicker for how many times in this conversation you've mentioned the audience, not you, the audience, there'd be a lot of numbers on that clicker. And I am 100% in your camp on that one of if you were the host and I were the guest and you asked me any question, most of them would end up at some point centering around it will depend on the audience or if it's serving the audience or if I have an audience. But I think we get into our own head, and many of the answers really are dictated by the audience, not your head. And I appreciate the fact that I can't shake you loose from it. And I completely agree with it. I've been a guest on many podcasts. You can ask me, what do you think of the rain that's coming in? Well, if the audience likes rain, I'm going to be. I mean, audience will come into that answer. So good on you. Uh, I got one last question for you. If somebody was listening right now, we're going to, and maybe their instinct was not to be as vulnerable, and we're listening to this show and we opened up their mind a little bit today. What would be one thing you'd want them to remember that to take with them from the show they just listened to?
Every time you open your mouth, speak with spirit and truth.
Simple as that, folks. Simple as that. And as I said, as I crowbarred my Rob Jollisism into it, uh, the easiest way to be believed is to tell the truth, right? So, as simple as that sounds. Tamika, how do people get a hold of you?
You'll reach out to me on LinkedIn, Tamika Fair and Associates. You'll also reach me via email, Tamika at TamikaFairInquiry.org.
Good. Perfect. Okay. Well, terrific job today. Really enjoyed it. Folks, she does look at her LinkedIn because that's how we got connected. So I can tell you, not messing around. Reach out to her on LinkedIn. And what makes this interesting, and the reason why I think you would want a speaker like Tamika, is because this topic is not talked about enough. And quite frankly, you could learn how to make great visuals. I mean, I could teach a whole lot of things about how to construct a presentation. If people don't feel that it's coming from your heart and your gut, it's not going to be a great presentation. So I think this is a topic that should lead, not follow. I thank you so much for being on the show. Great
Thank
job.
you,
Great
Rob.
conversation.
Thank you. Always pleasure.
Well, my pleasure. Folks, we'll do it again as well as we can next time. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.